Welcome to the St. Louis Blues and Philadelphia Flyers pregame show. A lot to talk about. We're going to sum this up probably in about 10 minutes, and then, of course, the postgame show like usual. This is all coming up here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, live here for the St. Louis Blues as they take on the Philadelphia Flyers in tonight's 7 p.m. puck drop. The time actually of this game did get moved not too long ago, so yes, it is 7 p.m. my time here in the East and 6 o'clock your time in Central. So before we dive into today's episode, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. The St. Louis Blues are in a really interesting situation for tonight. They come to the East Coast and they're taking on the Philadelphia Flyers to start off this road trip in the Metropolitan. Today during morning skate, it was interesting to hear what a head coach, Drew Bannister, had to say and how they're really competing right now for that playoff spot. And as I'm looking on the ice, I'm doing pregame board when I'm looking at Robert Thomas, and he was actually the first player on the ice today for morning skate. And, Joel Hofer's still on the ice. And you really see a team that is passionate, a team that cares, a team that is putting in effort. Even Jordan Kyrou today told me that they're really fighting hard for this playoff spot. And that doesn't go unnoticed. Now, the biggest question of today's game is going to be Kevin Hayes. He's back in Philadelphia. And I know we talked about this in other episodes about how he didn't get treated the best by Philadelphia fans. But Captain Braden Shen spoke to me today and even said Kevin Hayes is a strong guy, a resilient player, and he will be just fine no matter what happens tonight, which I think goes a long way. All the players have exited the ice except the one and only Joel Hofer, who is now making his way to the locker rooms and giving a fan, it seems to be, a puck. So now the game is 15 minutes away from happening as it is 6:45. I expect tonight's game to be a high-scoring game, and I will explain why. Philadelphia and St. Louis are two very similar teams. Despite the fact that Philadelphia is doing better point-wise in the season, these are two streams that struggle in the power play, that are actually really good on the penalty kill. But most importantly, they're both in this weird phase of maybe a rebuild, so to say, but also having some veteran leaders. The St. Louis Blues, notably, though, have been a resilient team all season. Just when you think they're out and you think that they're done, they come back. And they're at a point of the season where these next couple games will really be the do-all, tell-all, and they're going to make it into the playoffs. And I think for St. Louis, even if you look at the stats of the season and you break down all of the games and you break down, the chances of them making and not making it, it's up in the air, right? So I'm going to tell you the lines for tonight's game. So for the first line, like usual, no surprise on this one, it's Robert Thomas. On the left wing is Pavel Buchnevich, and on the right it is Jordan Kyrou. So a lot of questions about Buch and if he will be the St. Louis Blues come Friday with the trade deadline. On that second line, it is Braden Shen, and he will be winged by Braden Saad and Jake Neighbors. And Robert Thomas had a lot of positives to say to me today about Jake Neighbors, so I'm excited for you to see that as well. On that third line, it is Kevin Hayes, and he will be winged by Zachary Bolduc, who I also spoke with today as well, and Kasper Kapanen back in the lineup after the unfortunate couple games that he has had. Finally, on that fourth line, it is Oscar Sundqvist, just as funny in person, and he will be winged by Alexei Kurchenko and Nathan Walker. I spoke to that line today, actually, after morning skate, and a lot of laughs with them. Defense will be Nick Leddy and Colton Parayko on that first pair. Second pair will be Torrey Krug and Justin Folk. And then finally, on that third pair, it's going to be Marcus Scandella and Scott Perunovich. And that tonight, you have Jordan Binghamton starting and Hofer backing him up, but I don't expect to see Hofer whatsoever take the ice. Before I continue on, I want to talk to you really fast about my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. I see some comments. Feel free to leave comments, questions, concerns. Apologize if the audio isn't as good on my microphone, so I got a new one. One of the comments I got is Kyrie going to score. So I cannot predict who is going to exactly score. But what I will say is I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Kevin Hayes scores today. When I spoke to Kyrie, he did seem very motivated about tonight's game. And he reiterated how important of a game tonight is, being against Philadelphia, one of the better teams right now in the NHL. But still, Philadelphia is a team that is beatable. They're not a team that is as dominant like the Florida Panthers or even the Boston Bruins. They're a team that the Blues could realistically beat. A lot of people have asked me, who do I think is going to win tonight's game? I couldn't even tell you due to the fact of how similar these two teams seem to be, at least for me. Another thing I want to mention is when I was walking into the center tonight, I saw a couple of people wearing a blue note, so obviously I stopped them. And I asked them where they're from. They said St. Louis, and we had a nice little conversation. So if you're any of those people and you went back to watch the podcast, it was awesome meeting you. Actually a really good amount of people wearing the blue note tonight. I'm looking around right now. I know that you can't see. I posted some pictures on my Twitter at Haley T. Simon, and there's a really good crowd of Blues fans for tonight's game. And it seems like a lot of people I spoke to have traveled, and maybe people don't necessarily live in the Philadelphia area. But it's a really good crowd for this game tonight. So pushing to the playoffs. Right now, the Blues are in a position, as I mentioned previously, where the playoffs should be on their mind. You have the trade deadline coming up this Friday, and listen, there's no doubt about it. The Blues, they've had some really rocky games where they should have won, but you're in a competitive Central Division. And in that Central Division, you have to be realistic, right? You just beat the Wild, a huge 3-1 win over Minnesota with Marc-Andre Fleury and net. You lost to the Oilers, but you did get that point in overtime. So that does account for something. So 3 points in the last 2 games. Tonight, obviously, they have Philadelphia. Then they look to take on the Islanders tomorrow night. So it's going to be a back-to-back. Coach Bannister said he didn't know who was going to be starting in net tomorrow night. He's taking one game at a time. I mean, against the Islanders, I wouldn't start Joel Hofer. They're a beatable team. And then they have the Devils on Thursday and the Rangers on Saturday. And then they head to take on the Boston Bruins next Monday for their One Atlantic Division team. And then they head back home to Enterprise to take on the Kings next Wednesday. So a lot of travel for the Blues up here in the East. But what they need to do, they need to get at least a point tonight or win tonight. Win tomorrow. The Devils are a beatable team, and I will talk in more detail about that as we get closer to that game. The Rangers, they might be the only game where the Rangers and Bruins, let's be honest, those are the two teams where you could realistically look at and say, hey, I don't think this team is going to win against those two teams, and I don't blame you on thinking that whatsoever. Probably some of the best teams in the NHL right at this moment. But when you're looking at teams like a Philadelphia and Islanders and Devils, those are 3 games where you should come out with points. And I don't see the Blues really having any other outcome. Now, Bannister did say when it comes to that third line and the fourth line, those are the lines that are kind of getting moved around and shaken up quite a bit. And he said that, he really doesn't plan on doing that, right? And I said this before, but having the consistency is what's going to get this team to win. You have to have consistency. Consistency is overall the most important thing of the St. Louis Blues team. And one thing I noticed today, especially when they're on the ice for morning skate, and I watched them go over their different lines and different drills, that first and second line always are the most in sync, and it's because of that consistency that they have together. Granted, Robert Thomas was the first on the ice today for morning skate, not night. It's night now. And I think that he is one of those players that is one of the most hardworking people on the team. And as I said, I'm so excited for you to see all the interviews that I have with the players, because I think you're going to truly get a real feel for everything that I've been seeing, not necessarily in person, but more behind the scenes, and now having that glimpse of it definitely makes me hopeful and optimistic for the season ahead. I want to let you know about Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, and comedy and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seats, and your best price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They have last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. Easy to find and buy tickets at every kind of event in your area, and views for all the seats in the venue and the lowest price guarantee with event cancellation protection and job loss prevention. This is what you need to do. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKED ON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED ON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. We are now nearing the almost 10-minute mark until puck drop for tonight's contest with the St. Louis Blues and the Philadelphia Flyers. And as we're getting closer to game time, I'm going to say what I think is going to happen. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just going to give some of my game time predictions. I think the Blues are going to score first. I really do. But when St. Louis scores first, we know how this goes. Usually it brings out nothing but success. Now, with Philadelphia, they are missing their star player, Travis Konechny. He wasn't practice today. Wearing a no-contact jersey, so no surprise that he is not back in the lineup due to injury. So I think that this gives the Blues a real shot. When your best player isn't in the lineup, then that gives the opposing team a great opportunity to be able to accelerate. I think that Robert Thomas is going to have, honestly, a field day with Philadelphia's defense tonight. While Philadelphia's defense is missing another key player in Jamie Drysdale, the Flyers acquired at the Cutter Gauthier situation, which, you know, you and I know very well about, since that involved Kevin Hayes, unfortunately. They definitely are struggling on defense a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that the Blues have good defense, because we know that they don't, but having Justin Folk back in the lineup after he was out for 12 games definitely is vital for this Blues defense, and especially having a leader of the team like Folk. So, the 65 points, and looking to gain and make it 67 tonight before heading to Long Island to take on the Islanders. The Blues need to attack right away. They need to get on the board first, and they need to really solidify themselves. Philadelphia is one of those teams, for whatever reason, is really able to come back when you're down right away. So as long as the Blues, they keep up that pace, and they keep that pace consistency. I don't want to see what has happened where in the second period they look sloppy. They need to maintain that level of energy and effort throughout the entirety of the 60 minutes. Now, with the back-to-back, this does leave concern, as I do feel like this is going to drain this team. I think that if you have a really tough game tonight, it is hard to come back tomorrow night, 24 hours later, and execute the same exact way. And my biggest fear with this team is that they're going to gain 2 out of 4 points, when realistically they should be gaining at least 3 out of 4 points. And I think that with Philadelphia, I wouldn't be surprised if this game went to overtime. And I've been saying this all season, because I always compare the two teams. Whenever I have compared the Philadelphia Flyers to any other team in the NHL, or I compare the St. Louis Blues to any other team in the NHL, I've talked to Locked On Flyers about this. They have so many similarities. And the only main difference that the Blues have that the Flyers don't is the fact that they have Jordan Binnington. Jordan Binnington is one of the goalies that you look at as a staple goalie in the NHL. His rookie year, he won the Cup with the Blues, and he's been a key part to the team. And, with the Flyers, they have a very young goalie, Tatum, due to some events, but you have a guy like Binnington in net tonight. That's going to be a problem for Philadelphia. And I don't necessarily think that the Blues are going to be struggling tonight. I think it's going to be a very good game for St. Louis. And, again, I would be surprised if there's any other outcome due to the fact that, again, two teams that have a lot of similarities, but also two teams that, the last time these two teams played each other, the Flyers had win 4-2 in St. Louis. Now, I think that the guys, they remember that. And, Tori mentioned today, Bennington mentioned today, the guys remember that loss. And I think that right now, use that as momentum, use that as a fire to get back on the win column and to split with Philadelphia for the season. It's a very winnable game, and I've said that before. And I suspect that at the end of the day, the main difference between this game It's not going to be the defense. It's not going to be the goalies. It's going to see what your offense can produce. And as long as that Robert Thomas line, that first line, and that second line with that Braden Shen's line are able to maintain that consistency on ice, I don't see the Blues losing. Now, the only line that does draw me a little bit concerned would be the third line with Kevin Hayes. But we talked about this before. I do think that Hayes will come back to Philly and use it as momentum to have a good game. And the thing about Kevin Hayes' line, you do have Zachary Bolduc with it, and you have Casper Kapanen, and there's something to prove with those two players as well. So they just announced the Blues, and a lot of booze, but that's typical Philadelphia. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm gonna let you hear it. I'm surprised they didn't cheer for Braden Shen. I saw a lot of Shen jerseys, not even just St. Louis Shen jerseys, but I saw a lot of Flyers Shen jerseys. I'm actually kind of surprised about that. It's going to be a good hockey game tonight. Make sure to follow @LockedOnBlues at my Twitter, @HaleyTSimon. And like always, how we end every single episode, let's go Blues.